And today what I'm going to teach you is nothing super fancy, all right? We are going to talk about the Cutco kitchen, and then you guys want to learn about that. I have an awesome handout, which is going to give you most of the verbiage scripted out, exactly where to put it in your manual, so you guys can just plug and go, and you can start selling some more on all of your appointments. There's 3 big reasons that top reps sell more than the average everyday rep. 3 reasons that they close higher. First one is swag. All right, swag. And what I mean by swag is confidence. Have you noticed from a lot of our speakers, our CSPs, our managers, they all have a big belief in the product and confidence in themselves? So you gotta be confident in yourself, in your appointment, in your product. Tell me Mr. Andy Janti, when he walks into the house, doesn't know exactly what he's gonna sell that person, right? He comes in and he knows he's gonna sell him everything in the book. He's gonna show him everything every single time. It blows my mind when I go field training with a new rep and they don't even show the customer everything that we make. How can you expect to sell something if you don't even show it to them? So many times reps will say, oh, how's your cookware? Oh, I have good cookware. Okay, no problem. Flip over that page. Imagine if we did that with the knives. We would never sell anything, right? But you gotta show everything on every appointment. I remember when I was, my very first training class that I ran when I was a assistant manager, I had a kid named Jacob. And Jacob calls me from his first appointment. He's trying to close a trimmer on 2 payments. And the customer's saying no. And he said, yeah, I showed him everything. I dropped down to a trimmer on 2 payments. And they just said they can't afford it. They can't afford a trimmer on 2 payments. I like the laughter. That's good. It means you guys are selling a lot of trimmers, or hopefully a little bit more than that. And I'm like, all right, well, no problem. That's fine. Don't show them the trimmer. Walk them through all the accessories. Show them everything else. He's like, no, I think I'm just going to go. I'm running late for my next appointment. They're not going to get it, and they can't afford it. I'm like, Jacob, trust me. Just show them the rest of the book, and you're there anyway. Might as well. It's going to take you 5 minutes. Just show them everything. And he's like, no, really, like I spent forever on the knives. They won't even buy. I'm like, Jacob, shut up and show them everything. All right? I got a little frustrated with him. It was my first training class. And he calls me back about 15, 20 minutes later. He had left the house, and I could just tell on the phone that he's frustrated and upset. He's like, Tim, you won't believe what happened. I'm like, dude, it's okay, no sales happened. He's like, no, it wasn't a no sale. I'm like, well, what'd you sell? A flatware chest, paid in full. What happened? What happened was they just weren't excited about the knives. For whatever reason, they might have had loose stock ankles, maybe they just bought a set, who knows what it was, but the flatware or the knives just didn't resonate with the customer. And the second he showed them the flatware, boom, all of a sudden they found $1,000. Oh, I didn't even know I had this under my pillow. Here you go. That's not what happened. So what does that mean about the trimmer? When he was trying to sell that trimmer, was it really that they didn't have any money? No. Of course not. We all know everybody can afford a homemaker or hire. We all know that people can budget that if you're seeing the right types of customers. What happened was they just weren't excited about the knives. Either he didn't do a great job of selling it on them, or for whatever reason, they just weren't excited about it. And the second they saw something that they needed, they broke out the checkbook and were able to write it up right away. So you gotta show your customers everything on every appointment. Be professional, smell good, be prepared. Know your basics. The second thing we're gonna talk about is creating a buying atmosphere. If you've ever gotten to the close and you start talking about your prices and your customers are surprised that you're even asking them to buy, it means you haven't done a good job with this part, okay? My customers know the second I'm on the phone with them that they might not have to buy, but I'm gonna try to sell them everything that we make, right? And I might even tell them that jokingly if I can tell they're a little nervous. I'm like, Miss Jones, just so you know, I'm gonna try to sell you everything. It's okay, you don't have to say yes, you might, you probably will, a lot of people do. But you don't have to, but I'm gonna try. And that's okay, that's kind of the relationship that you're building with them. Selling Cutco like you sell party to your friends. And that's kind of what I talked about earlier, one of the biggest things I learned from Andy Janti. You gotta create that buying atmosphere early on, even from the phone. And the third, and probably the most important thing is, CSPs don't sell features and benefits, we don't sell names and uses, we don't sell knives, we sell the experience of owning Cutco. We sell the concept of Cutco, the concept of sets, the concept of the Cutco kitchen, the concept of being part of the Cutco family. That's what we sell. We sell a product that people use every single day, never have to pay to replace, never have to pay to maintain, and is gonna work just as well in 30, 40, 50 years as the day that they bought it. How many other things in the world are there like that? Things that you buy one time, use every day, never have to pay to replace, never have to pay to maintain, and will be working just as well in 40, 50, 60 years when the kids, grandkids, great-grandkids have the product as the day that they bought it. There's not much. Oakley sunglasses, Zippo lighters, Not a whole lot of these items, but Cutco is one of them. And that's really what you're selling. Forget about the knives for a second. Imagine that for 200 bucks a month for 5 months, you can guarantee that your customers, every time they walk into their kitchen, for the rest of their lives, their kids' lives, their families' lives, they're gonna get in and out of that kitchen faster, easier, more efficiently, more effectively, having a lot more fun than ever before. For 200 bucks for the next 5 months, their kitchen's done for the next 40, 50, 60 years. I have many customers that are second, third generation Cutco owners. And if you guys don't even understand that concept, if you don't have that belief yourself, how are you ever going to be able to explain that to your customers, right? So it really starts with you. And a lot of what I'm going to cover today isn't necessarily 100% applicable to your demo, but they're things that you guys need to know, and when you really internalize them, will show big time in your appointments. So we're going to start with swag, all right? We're going to start with confidence. What does this mean? How do you get this swagger on your appointments? This is the bottom line, all right? You got to know your stuff. There's no managers in the room. Good. Know your stuff. Know your basics. If you don't know your basics, it doesn't matter what all these advanced things I'm going to teach you on, because you can't build a house on sand, right? You got to have a solid foundation. You build a house on sand, it's going to fall over. You got to build those basics. And when I think about basics, the first person that comes to mind is Adriano Diaz. Adriano started in the summer of 2012. He went to Palmer Trinity. He was a 10K fast starter, so $10,000 in his first 10 days. And he started right around this time. In SC2, he sold $30,000 his first summer. Went on to be a 2-time branch manager, graduated from FIU, and now has a finance job somewhere in the Midwest. But what's crazy about Adriano is he was probably the best at the basics I've ever seen. He really dove in and memorized that manual right away, and he had almost $1,000 order like right off the bat. And I remember that switch from SC1 to SC2. He went from $10,000 in his fast start to $30,000 for SC2, and the difference was implementing all the advanced stuff. But the reason he was able to do that was he had that solid foundation. He had been working on his manual for 2 months and had it verbatim, and so he was easily able to make these changes and add some advanced stuff. Now let's compare that to Luis Ocio. Luis Ocio started the following summer. He had a $12,000 fast start, and he only sold $12,000 for SC2. I remember after his fast start, he was the biggest fast starter so far that summer, so I went field training with him. I was his assistant manager, and it was one of the worst appointments that I've ever seen in my entire career. It was terrible. I could not believe that this kid had just sold $12,000. Turned out he had gone online, watched a bunch of sales videos, gotten on Vector Connect, learned all these advanced tips, and had basically just thrown the manual away, didn't follow any of that. Mr. Swagger, Papi Chulo, I got this, and it wasn't serving him very well. By the time SC2 came around, he really had to, after I went on that appointment, I'm like, dude, we gotta start from scratch. This is a mess. I don't know how you sold what you sold. What happened was he had a couple of bigger orders, but then most of his orders were either a big order or nothing at all. And so when you have the combination of the two, that's when you get those big pushes. So all the advanced stuff and the cool stuff I'm going to teach you right now, it'll help you close some bigger orders. But if you don't have your basics, your average order is not going to increase dramatically. You've got to put these these extra little skills on top of the basics in order to really get the results. Can't build a house on sand. So the question I get asked a lot then is, do you still use your manual? When is it okay for me to stop using my manual? When you see us CSPs, you see these big numbers, $400,000, $1 million in career sales, it's like there's no way they're reading the manual on their appointments. And the truth is obviously not, okay? We don't read the manual. We don't follow it word for word. But that's how we started. And I remember this customer, Nana. This was the second time I went to see her. This was last year. Originally, I sold her a studio set. You can see it back there in the corner. You know she was my first summer because she just got a studio set. But I went back to sharpen her knives, ended up upgrading her to an ultimate set. And she was the first appointment when I realized like I actually had learned my stuff. Many of you have heard me speak before, and I get a lot of credit for putting together good messages, and I think there's really 2 reasons why I've become a good speaker. One is that I was a terrible rep. I've made every single mistake that any of you are ever going to make probably 10 times over. I had a $1,200 fast start. I didn't have the most exciting first summer. I've never been the super stud rock star. I've just been consistent and I've learned. So I've learned all of these things. I've earned my success. And I remember what it was like to be where all of you guys are, because it wasn't that long ago. And I know the things that I did to get to where I am today. And that's really what I'm going to try to show you guys. So on this appointment, I had my manual, like I always do. It was probably 3-4 months into the business. I had recently started to focus on learning my manual, and I'll give you a couple of tips on what I did to do that. And I remember after the company page, the next time I looked at the manual was when I was closing. And I didn't even realize that like my intention was to read the manual like I had been on all of my appointments. And it just naturally happened. It was like the forever guarantee had inspired me and it was flowing out of my mouth like the Holy Spirit. It was grace. All right? The Cutco training manual, your Cutco Bible, I mean, I had those things word for word. And I'll tell you, that appointment was pretty much word for word from the manual, but it was without me necessarily having to read it. I had not just memorized it, but internalized it. And there's a big difference there. Memorization is kind of like repeating it, and it can sound memorized. Anybody, the first thing it's going to do is sound memorized. But once you memorize it, you really begin to internalize it. And when you internalize it, you can do some really cool things with it. So you really got to get your manual down. Here are a couple tips for getting your manual down. Pick a section. Read that section 10 times a day. If I had to pick the most important sections, it would be probably your recommendations approach. There's that page 16, right? That's got to be number 1. Then your close, pages 8 and 9. Take out paragraph by paragraph. And the third most important section would probably be your names and uses. So those would be the order in which I would focus and prioritize learning my manual. Use memorization techniques while you're doing that. I remember my first fall selling Cutco. On my way to school on the bus ride, I would read my manual. I was a Cutco nerd, but I don't care, it made me a lot of money. And every morning I would read my manual. Before I started any Cutco activity, whatever section I was working on that week, my close or my phone approach, like that was what I would read before I started any Cutco activity. And I would read it one sentence at a time, repeat that sentence over and over again, and then add the second sentence and read those 2 sentences over and over again, and then add the third sentence and read those 3 sentences over and over again. And eventually, once you've done enough appointments, once you've practiced it, it just kind of flows. And it flows in your own words, but you're always hitting those objectives. So these are the 7 objectives of a sale. You should have learned this in training. If you haven't, write them down. But was this covered in everybody's training? Yeah. Okay, good. Establish rapport. Establish credibility. Create a problem. Offer the solution. Create a specific need for a set. Compare prices and close. These 7 things need to happen on every single appointment. Now, the cool thing that starts to happen once you get your manual down is it doesn't really matter how you hit these objectives. What matters is that you hit them. So as you get more advanced, I'll never forget one of my appointments. I had a customer that was just super unengaged, right? I'm going through the company page, you could tell her eyes were like glossed over. She's not paying any attention. This happened to anybody before? Okay? And at one point she just stopped me. She's like, honey, can you just show me this stuff? I actually want to see the knives, but I don't care about any of this stuff. Just show me the knives. And I was kind of taken aback, but I started going through names and uses. And I had known my manual well enough, and I knew I got to hit my objectives. So as I'm going through names and uses, I start hitting my features and benefits. How's that handle feel, Ms. Jones? Yeah, it feels nice, doesn't it? Check out that rivet, just feel that. Isn't it cool? It's smooth. Those are nickel silver. They won't expand or contract. It's pretty neat. Next one's your trimmer. They cut some food. By the way, how's that edge? Isn't that crazy? Yeah, what Cutco did was they put 3 little edges in between the points. Actually, here, let me show you. Flip back to features and benefits page. Start going through features and benefits. But now she's engaged. Now she's paying attention. And you can't really do that if you don't know your manual, right? I was covering all the same information, but I was able to knock out those objectives in a creative place. Got some light bulbs going off there. But the first step is to get them down, right? The first step is to know these things. And they're designed to go in a specific order. So whenever possible, that's what you're doing. But the cool thing is you can get creative as you get them down, and you can really get good at it. For example, if you meet a customer that's owned Cutco for 50 years, loves it, won't stop talking about how great it is, how much she loves the company, is that the kind of customer you need to spend a lot of time on credibility with? No, right? So you can spend that time in other places. But you never know where the customer needs the time. And that's why you need to know everything about every section. Because you might have a customer like a Cutco owner who the credibility is not that important, but then you might get a skeptic. I know for sure some of the Hispanics in Miami are like that. It doesn't matter what you say, they won't believe you, right? My first signature set ever, the one objective I had to hit was credibility. And going through the company page wasn't enough. I was getting to the close, I was showing her prices, showing him prices, and he just wasn't, like, he liked the knives, I can tell everything was good, like he loved it, but he just didn't believe the company was gonna be open tomorrow to guarantee the knives, right? It didn't matter that we'd been open since the 40s. It didn't matter that he was like my second cousin, somewhat family related. Like, he just didn't believe in the company. And so what I did was I pulled out my laptop, or actually I got on his, and we watched the Made in America video, We watched the Modern Marvels video. Like, I wanted to let him know, like, we've been around, this is legit. They've been based in New York. We do millions of dollars in sales every year. We'll sharpen your knives in a year, I promise. Don't worry about it. And he needed that extra credibility. So that's how you start to get advanced. But if you don't even know the credibility page, you can't do anything fancy with it, right? So the first step is to get these things down.